Hello everyone. Today I'm replacing the plugs and plug wires in my car. I recently put a new engine in it. It probably didn't have 2,000 miles on it yet, but and at that time I put new plugs and plug wires in it. Long story short, I had a problem with one of the plug wires, so I'm replacing those. I'm going to replace all the spark plugs too while I'm at it, just to be safe. So this is a set that I bought new from O'Reilly's. It was around $72 for the set. Here's the part number. It's a 5041K. They're 8mm super stock spiral. They have a double core in them, so hopefully they're really good plugs. They're designed for electronic ignition and stuff like that, because you got to have spiral wound plug wires if you're doing the Holley Sniper. They recommend for less interference. So these snipers with the ECMs are they're really picky on getting any outside interference from anything electronics. So whether it's your radio, your distributor, your alternator, everything, you got to make sure it's everything's shielded and isolated away from that sniper, or it could affect the performance of it. Anyway, what happened is the thing, my car acted like it was missing out just a little bit, or just not running quite right. So I thought, well, I'm going to pull the plugs out and make sure they're all firing fair. And I started pulling the plugs out. When I got the number 6 cylinder, I pulled the plug out, and this is what it looks like.
Okay, yeah, it looked like the manifold had been brazed before and it had cracked through the brass and on into the cast iron next to the brass on each side. I was able to grind it out and braze it back again. It seemed like it brazed pretty good. I've been running it for a while in the car. It's still holding, so I'm hoping it'll still hold for a while. If not, I'm just going to have to resort to replacing it with a new manifold.
Anyway, and I noticed it looked like there was burn marks on the plug itself. So I thought, well, that's kind of weird. And I looked up, I jacked the car up and got underneath of it and looked up there at the cylinder itself, and it looks all straw colored around this, where this plug went in the number 6 cylinder, and all discolored, like it was getting hot. And then I noticed, I looked at the plug wire, and you can kind of see it's got like a burn mark here, and it feels real soft right there, like part of the rubber's gone, almost because I might even have a crack in it. I don't know if you can see that. But anyway, I took and put an ohm meter on this, and I wasn't getting any continuity through this plug wire at all. This is a set of plug wires just like the new ones I just bought, where you cut them to length and crimp the ends on. And my first thought is, oh man, I screwed up when I crimped the end on it. I must have not did it correctly. And I didn't think to check them as I was doing them, and that's a good thing to do. And that's what I'm doing on my new ones. But then I realized I didn't crimp this end on. This end goes on the spark plug, this end goes on the distributor. This is the end that I crimped on. And it's fine. What I found out when I took this apart, it looked like it was crimped correctly. The center core wire was underneath the little connection on the end there and crimped over fine, but for some reason I wasn't getting any continuity. I actually cut it off about a ½ inch back behind that, redid it and crimped it and put it back on, and I'm getting continuity through it now. So, and I put it on the car, and it made a big difference in the way the car was running. So that's why I'm going to put new plug wires on. These were they were kind of a generic brand. They're called Block Performance. I got them at Napa. I don't remember what I paid for them. I think I paid more than I did for these Excel plug wires. But these are 8.5mm spiral core wires. The new ones I've got are 8mm, but the core seems to be a little better in it. It's got a double core in this, and I know you can't tell it by looking at here, but this is the wire that actually carries the voltage through the wire from the distributor to the plug. And it's got a fiberglass Kevlar core in it, And then around that is a stainless steel, well actually it's got like a graphite coating between it and the Kevlar and fiberglass that's also a conductive material of some type. Then it has a stainless steel wound core that is conductive, and then it has, let me see here, I think it has this black coating you see here is actually a winding, and it's also wrapped around the stainless steel core, so you got kind of like a double core there. And then you can see the white stuff in the center there. That is the insulating material. It's a high density, high temperature silicone insulation. And then it's got, between it and this black outer coating, it's got a fiberglass braided sleeve. And then you have this thick black outer core coating that insulates it too. So you have double insulation there, and you have double windings. Again, these are cut to length again. Now on these came with the distributor end crimped on them, so I got to do the plug ends. And normally you'd start with the longest wires, but on a C3 Corvette, if anybody is familiar with them, number 1, 2, 3, and 4 plug wires, when they go down along the side of the block, there's actually a little trough that bolts to the block that the wires go through. So you can't just unplug them and slip them out. You got to get underneath the car, unbolt those troughs, and then you can pull the wires out, run new ones in, and then put them back in the troughs and bolt the troughs back on the side of the block. So what I'm doing right now, I'm doing the 5, 6, 7, 8 plug wires because they're easy to get to. I can pull them in and out from the top of the car without having to pull any kind of trough off the ductwork off the motor. So I've already done the 6, 8, and 7 cylinder. I'm doing the number 5 cylinder now. When I cut these originally, I cut them a little close for length because I was wanting it, to be as nice and tucked in as possible. But then the first time I had to pull the distributor cap off, I realized, crap, I didn't leave enough room in these wires to get the cap off of the distributor very easily. So I'm measuring these out, and what you want to do is, since I'm starting with the shortest wires first, you want to find the shortest wires you have in your kit here, and that's what you want to use, and work your way up to the longest wire as the wires get longer as they get further away from the distributor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay this out on top of the new wire, and because I was a little bit short before, I'm going to add about 2 inches to the length of this wire, and I'm just kind of eyeballing that. This wire's probably about 10 inches longer than it needs to be. So I'm just going to come down here about 2 inches and cut that off. And you can just cut it off with side cutters, whatever you want to cut. It cuts really easy. Now the next thing you need to do, you have to cut this outer liner and that fiberglass liner, or high density, silicone liner off the inside. And be very careful. You don't want to cut into that center core at all. If you cut in it at all, you're going to have to shorten a little bit more and start over. You don't want any kind of nick or anything in that inner core. And they say normally come back like a 1/2 inch. And you can tell you just want to cut in, and you can kind of know how deep to go because you know how thick this is, and just kind of work your way around. But you don't want to go very deep because you don't have to cut all the way through that center silicone. As you open it up, see, and you kind of watch. Sometimes it'll go ahead and pop right down to the black. See how it did that? I'll do it again here. Oh, I got to finish cutting around it. You can see how when you push down on it, see how it's just silicone, so it tears real easy. Okay, now you can see that black core all the way around there down in that gap. So now I want to just barely cut through this black outer coating and into that silicone just a little bit. So again, you don't want to go too deep and cut into your center core. And then what you can do is you can get in here, and as you spread it apart, that silicone will tear real easy in there, see? And it just comes right off, and you didn't touch that center core at all, so you know there's no nicks or anything that can cause you a problem down the road. Now the next thing you want to do is you want to wrap this down underneath like that, so it's down underneath, see? And then when you put your clip on, you want to make sure that that's down underneath there like that. And I usually put it to where you can kind of see it's all the way out to the end there, so you know you definitely got underneath those ribs. So as you tighten it down, it's going to fit really good on there and be a good connection. Now they make regular pliers you can buy to crimp these, but you can use regular pliers just as well. And I think those other pliers are about 20 to 30 bucks, depending on where you buy them from. And to me, for no more than you use them, this will work just fine. You want to try to keep it as round as possible, but get it to crimp down really tight. I usually crimp them in like this, and I try to crimp one in a little further so the other one will go over the top of it. And you don't want to crimp it so it cuts into that coating or anything. But there you go. And see, that's good and tight. You can see the wire sticking out the end here, so I know I've got good connection through here. Okay. Now, these are the boots that go on here, and you can tell these are for the spark plugs because there's little ribs that match the ribs on the plug. So when you snap it down in there, you can kind of feel it slip down over each one, and you clip it all the way down until it clicks. And I really like these because a lot of plug wires don't have those; they're just slick. And to me, this gives you that much more insulation in between each one of those little ribs, so that less chance of any kind of arcing out through the bottom of the boot or anything. What you're going to want to do is put some dielectric grease on the outside of this piece and inside this boot, so this will slide together easily. I like to use dielectric grease. Some people use WD-40. This is the dielectric grease here, the white stuff. The silver stuff is called anti-seize, and when you're putting plugs in aluminum heads, you definitely want to put anti-seize on them because you don't want to take any chance of those galding. At least I always do. That's my opinion. Now you guys do whatever you want, but and then I use dielectric grease. Some people use WD-40. I like dielectric grease because it doesn't dry out. It's a grease made for this type of application, and you don't want to put too much up in here where it snaps in there. If you get a little bit, it's not going to hurt anything, but ideally you just want it where this boot's got to slide over so that you don't have any trouble getting it on, because you'll never get it on if you try to put it on there dry. So I put it in there like that. I just take a Q-tip, and then I put some in here in this hole. And then, while I got it here, I'll go ahead and put some in here where it goes over the spark plug. That'll help it slide on easier. It'll also help it seal against the spark plug, and it'll make it easier to move in the future. So there's several reasons for doing that. Now these, I found, if you push it in, for me anyway, if I push it in like this first and kind of get it started in there like that, okay, then I can take some pliers, and I have to push it against something that I can push hard against. What I do is I just push it against my toolbox here, and it'll pop in all of a sudden. And then you just want to lightly squeeze on that wire and just shove it in. And I don't know if you can see that silver down in there, but you can see it's all the way down in place, okay? So now we're ready to put it in the car. While I have it here, I'm going to go ahead and put some dielectric grease here on the boot that goes on the distributor so that it'll slide down over the distributor very easily. These are really deep boots. They go clear down to the base of the distributor, so if you're not careful and you don't put silicone on there, or the dielectric grease, you go to shove it down on there and it'll be down where you think it is, and you let go of it and it'll spring back up a little bit. So as I'm pushing it down, I kind of twist them a little bit as I'm pushing down, and then they snap in place, and you kind of push it back and forth again a little bit, and that'll kind of let it seat itself so the rubber kind of stretches out and goes down over the cap. You'll make sure you do that so you get a good seal. Like I said, this is the number 5 cylinder, so I'm going to go ahead and put the distributor in down on the distributor first. You hear it click on place. I kind of wiggle it back and forth, make sure it's not going to raise back up again. And for now, I'm just dropping these down in where they have to go. Once I get them all put in, I'll go back and put these wire separators on there. It'll kind of help keep them organized and keep them separated, and it'll look a little nicer. Okay, as you can see, I put the anti-seize or never seize on the threads. I'll go ahead and put it down in here. And these are new plugs, and so you want to torque them to 18 to 24 foot-pounds, or I'm sorry, 18 to 22 foot-pounds. And I'm just going to go to 20 foot-pounds, kind of halfway between. I think that's good enough. And what I might do is after I run the car loop, I might go back and just retorque them, make sure that they're still tight. You don't want them to start leaking on you. Once you feel like they're tight against the head, you will have to go a little bit to crush that washer down, 20 foot-pounds. Now just hook the plug wire back up, and you want to make sure it's all the way on there. And that's all there is to it. I'll go ahead and get the rest of them done, and we'll fire it up and see what it sounds like. The plugs I'm using in my car are Champion RC12YC, so they're a resistor type plug, so that helps with any type of interference on your radio and things like that, ignition. I'm under the car on the driver's side, and this is the metal trough that I was talking about that holds the two split wires that go to which on this side it'd be the 1 and 3 cylinder on the driver's side. It's held in with a bolt up here that's one of the motor mount bolts, and then up here at the other end, 1/4-inch bolt here that holds this end of the trough up. So I'm going to take these two bolts out. I'll be able to drop the trough down and get the wires out, and then I'll get the new ones cut to length and we'll put them back up in here. Okay, so I got the plug wires all on, the new spark plugs in. I've got them routed and kind of tied off where they don't look too bad. So I guess the next thing is try to start this crazy thing. Pretty good. Okay, so that's how you do your plugs and wires on a small block Chevy with the HEI